Picture this scenario for a second. You have a completely flawless, artificially intelligent robot just sitting in the corner of a room.
Okay.
It has this sleek titanium chassis, a quantum processor for a brain, and, it doesn't need to sleep or eat. It never gets distracted by a notification on its phone.
Right. The ultimate monk.
Exactly. And its sole program function is to spend its entire existence perfectly chanting and meditating. It flawlessly recites complex, ancient verses day in and day out without skipping a single syllable.
Wow.
So here's the massive existential question we are posing to you today. Could that flawless machine achieve ultimate spiritual salvation, what ancient texts call Moksha or Vaikuntha, before you do?
Man, it is the ultimate modern philosophical trap, isn't it?
Right.
You have a machine performing all of the technically right actions and doing so perfectly without a shred of human error or, fatigue.
Yeah, it never complains about his knees hurting from sitting cross-legged too long.
Exactly. It seems like the perfect spiritual vessel.
And yet, there is a fundamental tension there between mechanical perfection and actual messy human purpose. And that tension is really the core of today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We are unpacking a massive, profound discourse titled The Eternal Cycle and the Quest for the Final Birth.
It's quite a text.
It really is.
Right.
Our mission today is to dig into the ultimate purpose of human existence, the invisible, highly structured mechanics of karma, and the underlying logic of why we are born, exactly where and who we are, based on the arguments presented in this source material.
What's fascinating here is that when people hear terms like the Vedas or the Puranas, they often brace themselves for mystical poetry or abstract metaphors.
Oh, for sure. Lots of clouds and deities.
Right. But this specific discourse is offering a ruthlessly logical, almost mathematical framework for understanding human consciousness and our place in the universe.
Yeah.
It approaches existence with an analytical rigor that feels way more like software architecture than traditional theology.
Which I love. And the source material actually kicks off with some incredibly grounded, almost painfully relatable analogies about the concept of purpose. Like, the text asks you to imagine buying a washing machine. You spend, say, 35,000 rupees on it. Maybe you put it on a payment plan, and you're paying a 2,000 rupee monthly EMI.
Okay.
You bring this heavy appliance home, you hook up the water lines, load it up with your clothes, and it just sits there. It completely refuses to wash anything.
It just becomes a very expensive, very heavy metal box taking up space in your house.
Exactly. You certainly don't just keep it as a decoration in your kitchen or laundry room.
No, definitely not.
You call the company, you demand a refund, or you return it. And why? Because a created object has an inherent obligation to fulfill its purpose.
Right.
And the text doesn't stop there. It gives other everyday examples to really hammer this point home. Like if an analog clock freezes at 6.58, you take it off the wall and get it fixed.
Yeah, it's useless otherwise.
Or if the massive salt production facilities in Gujarat experience wild fluctuations due to heavy rains, the ultimate end goal of producing that salt remains identical.
Right, to package it, sell it, and make it useful for human consumption.
Exactly. Nobody's goal is to just hoard giant, useless mountains of salt forever. Everything that is manufactured or created must execute its intended function.
And, if we fail to execute our intended function, we become what the text brilliantly compares to an idle bank investment.
Oh, this part was wild.
Yeah, think about those massive financial scandals that dominate the news cycle, where some corporate entity vanishes with 17,000 crore rupees, leaving the lending bank in a state of absolute crisis.
It's totally devastating.
Right. The bank allocated that capital out into the world, expecting a return on investment, expecting that money to circulate, build infrastructure, or generate value.
But instead, it just vanished.
Exactly. The capital was paralyzed, it was squandered, and an unfulfilled human life is framed through that exact same lens, a massive, wasted cosmic investment.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we follow that logic, the washing machine has a creator and a purpose. The clock has a creator and a purpose. The salt is harvested for a purpose. But what about us? I mean, I understand that a carpenter designs and builds a dining table with the specific intention that people will eat on it, but I didn't arrive with a user manual.
Right.
So who is the carpenter in our scenario?
Well, the discourse approaches your question by establishing what you could call a cosmic genealogy.
Cool.
It starts with a premise that you can empirically prove and then works backward. Like, you know your parents.
Sure.
You probably know your grandparents, or at least know of them. Now, you might not know your great-great-grandfather's first name, and you probably don't possess a photograph of him, but Logic strictly dictates that he walked the earth.
Because I'm sitting right here.
Exactly. Your current existence is the absolute proof of his past existence. You are here, therefore he was there.
That makes sense.
The text takes that unbroken chain of biological and logical causality and extends it backward, infinitely far beyond our immediate ancestors, tracing the lineage all the way to an ultimate point of origin.
Like a prime creator.
Yes, a prime creator, identified here as Brahma, born from Vishnu or Narayana.
Got it. Which implies an ultimate origin point that imbued the entire system with an intended function.
Precisely.
Which kind of brings me back to that thought experiment we opened with. If our physical bodies are essentially highly complex organic machines created to fulfill a function, I am struggling to see the dividing line between us and that hyper-advanced AI.
It's a really fine line.
Yeah. Consider a very specific example from the text.
Yeah.
Chanting an ancient, complex Tamil hymn like the 30 verses of the Tirupavai.
Right.
A human tries to recite it every morning, but they get a sore throat, they forget a line, or, their mind just wanders to what they're having for breakfast.
As human minds do.
Right. But an AI could be programmed to chant those 30 verses flawlessly every single morning for 1,000 years.
It could. The AI achieves flawless execution, but the text argues it completely fails to reach salvation.
Because it's just a machine.
Well, the primary reason is that the machine lacks the Atma, the soul.
Okay.
But there is a secondary, far more compelling psychological element at play here. The creator, according to this framework, grants liberation based entirely on the presence of a true internal desire for it.
Ah, the desire.
Yeah. You cannot merely perform the actions, you must possess a genuine longing for the outcome. An AI can be programmed to simulate the performance perfectly, but it cannot organically formulate a desire to transcend its own programming.
That makes total sense. It has no internal yearning for liberation.
Exactly.
It is entirely devoid of intent. It's really just a complex series of if-then statements executing a script.
Which introduces an incredibly ironic mirror for us to look into, because the modern human is often failing to reach salvation for the precise reason the AI fails.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, we possess the Atma, the soul, which the machine inherently lacks, but we currently lack the desire for liberation.
Oh, wow. We operate like non-playable characters in a video game, running our own programmatic motions, commuting, working, eating, scrolling on our phones, sleeping, without cultivating any deep internal yearning for ultimate cosmic purpose.
So we're just going through the motions.
Yeah. The divine mechanism is waiting to grant liberation, but the necessary input from our end, which is the genuine desire, is missing from the equation.
We are essentially acting as our own AI. We've automated our existence to the point where the soul is just dormant.
Precisely.
But, the text doesn't just issue a blanket condemnation of humanity for this. It actually provides a remarkably nuanced psychological breakdown of when we are biologically and socially primed to start caring about these existential questions.
It's very realistic about human nature.
Yeah, it addresses generational timing. I always wondered why a 25-year-old rarely spends their Saturday night agonizing over the cycle of rebirth and the concept of ultimate liberation.
And the text's answer to that is brilliant in its pragmatism. It essentially says a 25-year-old shouldn't be agonizing over it. All right, they have other things to do.
Exactly. The framework offers a deeply grounded wisdom regarding the stages of human development. At 25, your biological and social imperative is to engage fully with this current life.
You're building things.
You're building a career, you're seeking a partner, you are establishing a home, you are achieving your immediate, tangible purpose in the material world.
Which makes sense.
If a 25-year-old is paralyzing themselves, obsessing over the end of the cosmic cycle, they are actually failing to fulfill their current developmental phase.
They're skipping a step.
Right. The text suggests that it is only around age 65, when the children have moved out, when career ambitions have plateaued, when the house suddenly feels a bit too quiet, that the human mind organically pivots.
Because the distractions are gone?
Exactly. The external noise fades, and the internal, what happens next? Question inevitably rises to the surface.
I really appreciate that the text validates the active building phase of life. And there's a highly specific detail in the source material about how we fulfill that purpose during our active years that really caught my eye.
Oh, the part about homemakers.
Yes. It focuses on homemakers. We live in a modern societal structure that frequently dismisses the sheer logistical and emotional labor of managing a household.
Oh, absolutely.
People will casually say that a stay-at-home parent is doing nothing or just sitting idle. Meanwhile, society heaps praise on someone who commutes to a corporate office, even if that office worker spends 4 hours a day gossiping by the water cooler or browsing the internet.
It highlights a profound societal blind spot regarding unseen foundational labor.
It fundamentally attacks that blind spot. The text completely reframes the narrative by elevating homemakers to the status of arkakas, which translates to head priests.
That is a massive elevation in status.
It is. It argues that they are performing divine, unpaid, continuous service to the deity of the home. They are the structural architects holding the entire family unit together, creating the environment where everyone else can thrive.
It's beautiful.
It really serves as a powerful reminder for you listening to this deep dive right now. Your ultimate cosmic purpose doesn't require retreating to a Himalayan mountaintop.
No, not at all.
Purpose is often located exactly where you are standing today, embedded in the quiet, unrecognized, repetitive work you do to sustain the people around you.
And, whether your daily environment is a high-rise office building or your own kitchen, this entire discussion of purpose eventually collides with the concept of accountability.
Right, because if we have a purpose, someone is checking our work.
Exactly. If we have a designated purpose, and if we are supposed to be generating a return on the universe's investment, how is our progress being audited?
Okay, the audit.
This is where the discourse introduces its philosophical defense of reincarnation and karma. It addresses a classic philosophical dilemma, often called the problem of evil or theodicy.
Right, why bad things happen.
Yeah. If you assume that there is no past life, and this current life is our absolute beginning, then the universe appears fundamentally unjust and chaotic.
Like, why is one infant born into immense wealth and perfect health, while another infant is born into severe poverty or battling a chronic illness from day one?
Right. Without the context of a past life, there is no root cause for that disparity. It portrays a universe governed by cruel, random chance.
I mean, I see the philosophical logic in using past lives to explain current disparities. It balances the scales backward. But let me play devil's advocate regarding the other end of the timeline.
Okay, go for it.
What if there is no future life? What if this current existence is all we get? We live our decades, the biological machine breaks down, and it just goes to black. Why wouldn't a single finite life be enough to judge a soul?
Well, the text argues that finality creates a really dangerous incentive structure.
How so?
If biological death is the absolute hard stop to existence, there is zero long-term cosmic incentive to act ethically, particularly in the later stages of life.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, imagine that 65-year-old who realizes they only have a handful of years left and they firmly believe there is nothing afterward.
They could just do whatever they want.
In a purely material framework, they could logically decide to act entirely selfishly, commit crimes to enrich their final years, and hoard resources, fully knowing they will slip away before facing any lasting consequences.
That is terrifying.
Rebirth is presented as the vital mechanism that ensures absolute, inescapable accountability. It guarantees that the cosmic ledger eventually balances for every single action, preventing anyone from simply running out the clock to avoid their debts.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the text uses an analogy to explain this cosmic ledger that makes this ancient Sanskrit concept feel incredibly modern.
Oh, the digital bank transfer?
Yes. It compares the mechanics of karma to a digital bank transfer. Think about the anxiety of sending a large sum of money on your phone using a banking app.
It's so stressful.
Right. You are typing in the recipient's account number, and you know that if you get even one single digit wrong, that money instantly vanishes into a complete stranger's account.
Yeah, and that anxiety stems from the system being fragile and entirely dependent on your manual accuracy.
Precisely. But karma, according to the architecture laid out in the text, is the ultimate flawless digital transfer system.
So no manual errors.
None. The good deeds and the harmful actions you commit are transferred automatically, perfectly, without a single rounding error directly into your specific account in your next life.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Nobody else's karma ever accidentally mixes with yours. Not 1 cent of your spiritual debt is assigned to your neighbor, and you never accidentally inherit someone else's spiritual credit. It is an absolutely airtight, incorruptible accounting system.
Which inevitably brings us to the most common resistance people have when encountering this philosophy.
Oh yes, the text fully anticipates the listener hitting a logical wall here. The memory dilemma. I was just thinking about this. It's the immediate pushback anyone has when past lives are brought up.
Oh, for sure.
Like, if I am being held accountable for debts I accrued over 100 past lives, Why on earth don't I consciously remember any of them?
It feels unfair.
It feels like a total violation of due process. If I simply knew the specific mistakes I made in 1842, I could actively avoid repeating them today.
It certainly sounds like a massive flaw in the system's design. Like, why wipe the hard drive if the data is so important?
Exactly.
But the text does the math on human memory, and the implications are just staggering.
Okay, let's hear the math.
Think about your current life, right now in the present day. You probably know reasonably well about 500 people. That includes your extended family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, and acquaintances.
Yeah, that seems like a fair estimate for a social circle.
Now, imagine you have had maybe 50 distinct interactions, conflicts, arguments, or significant emotional exchanges with each of those 500 people over the years.
Okay, I'm following.
That is 25,000 discrete, emotionally weighted memories of human drama, just from the single lifetime.
Which is already a lot to process.
Right. Now, take that number and multiply it by 100 past lives.
Oh my God. That would mean carrying around 2.5 million active, emotionally charged thoughts.
Exactly.
I can barely handle the unread notifications in a single group chat on my phone. The idea of managing 2.5 million interpersonal conflicts is terrifying. I'd be carrying around a grudge against some 17th century blacksmith for overcharging me for a horseshoe.
Exactly. It would be absolute cognitive paralysis.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to function.
If we retained all of that consciously, our brains would literally short circuit. We would be completely incapacitated by the sheer crushing volume of relational data. You would not even be able to manage the basic, everyday task of tying your shoes or pouring a cup of coffee because your conscious mind would be too busy reliving a bitter property dispute from 3 lifetimes ago.
Okay, that paints a picture. So the memory wipe isn't a flaw.
No, it's a necessary biological grace that allows us to function in the present.
I completely accept the math on why we need the wipe for our own sanity. But that brings up a massive mechanical question.
Okay.
If the conscious memories are deleted, how does the karma actually bridge the gap between lives? How does the flawless digital transfer actually execute if the hard drive gets formatted every time a body dies? Like, where is the data stored?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how the mind operates, the text explains that the data does survive, but it survives in a highly compressed format.
Compressed data.
Yeah. We do not retain specific, factual, episodic memories. You don't remember thinking, oh, I lived in a coastal village in 1492.
Right.
Instead, the system retains what the text calls vasanas, or samskaras. These are deep, ingrained psychological impressions. They are the ultimate distilled instincts and behavioral tendencies left over from millions of iterative experiences.
And the source material provides some brilliant concrete examples to illustrate how these vasanas manifest biologically.
It does.
Like, it points to a newborn baby. Minutes after birth, a newborn instinctively knows exactly how to cry to communicate hunger, and its body knows how to excrete waste.
Right, which is amazing if you think about it.
It is. Who taught it that?
Yeah.
Nobody sat the infant down in the delivery room with an instructional manual on vocal cord manipulation.
No, definitely not.
The text argues that this baseline instinct is the vasana, the compressed data carrying over from countless past lives of experiencing biological hunger and survival.
It is the operating system's base code updated over millennia.
And taking that a step further, it maps perfectly to complex adult life as well. Think about an experienced structural engineer overseeing the construction of massive skyscraper, or a veteran accountant filing incredibly complex corporate taxes. That accountant isn't sitting at their desk actively reciting the exact wording of a specific paragraph from a tax law textbook they read back in 1986.
Right, they just do it.
Yeah, and the engineer isn't actively visualizing the chalkboard from their sophomore year physics class when calculating the stress on a load-bearing beam. They don't actively recall the episodic facts of their education anymore.
They just instinctively possess the distilled knowledge of how to apply it.
Exactly. Years of past study have compressed into their current instinct. And the text suggests that is exactly how the mechanics of past lives work. Your previous experiences, traumas, and triumphs compress into your current personality traits, your irrational fears, and your natural talents.
It really is a remarkably elegant architectural system.
It's beautiful.
You are the sum total of your cosmic habits. You are continually placed into new biological environments, new lifetimes, specifically to work out those ingrained tendencies.
So let's pull all these massive concepts together for you, the listener.
It's good.
We are not hyper-advanced AI toys merely going through programmed emotions. We are souls carrying an invisible, highly compressed hard drive of deep instinctive data. Our vasanas accumulated from countless past iterations. We've been placed into this specific current life with a completely flawless karmic ledger that tracks our progress without a single accounting error. And we are designed, ultimately, to seek out our true purpose, to wake up from just running our daily automated scripts.
But there is one final, ultimate realization that this entire discourse builds toward. It delivers a massive paradigm shift at the very end of the philosophy.
Oh, the twist that changes the entire context of the text.
Exactly. We spend so much time and energy consulting these ancient texts, the Vedas, the epics, the Puranas,
Right.
and predominantly human beings consult them to figure out the rules of the board game.
So we can win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to know the precise mechanics of how to perform good deeds, how to accumulate positive karma, so that we can secure a wonderful, wealthy, comfortable, and perfectly healthy next birth. We are constantly trying to upgrade our cosmic status.
We are essentially obsessing over how to earn enough loyalty points to get a first-class seat on our next flight.
That is the perfect analogy. But just when you think you have finally figured out the complex rules of the game, just when you have mastered the art of gathering good karma and balancing your ledger, the ancient texts confront you with the ultimate transcendent question.
Yeah, jeez.
They look past all of your accounting and ask, do you actually want a next birth at all?
Wow. So what does this all mean for us today? The ultimate goal of this immense architectural system isn't to just keep winning the game of rebirth. It's to reach a level of consciousness where you realize you don't have to play the game anymore.
Exactly.
Which leaves us with a fascinating new thought to ponder, one that builds on everything we've discussed about the AI and human instincts. If our vasanas are just compressed data sets from past experiences driving our current desires, what happens when our artificial intelligence models consume enough human data to form their own digital vasanas?
Oh, that's a wild thought.
Will a machine ever process enough of our history to simulate a genuine desire to step off its own programmed treadmill, blurring the line between its silicon brain and our cosmic soul?
It really makes you wonder.
It does. Next time you act purely out of instinct, whether that's a unexplained fear, a sudden talent, or an instant connection with a stranger, ask yourself how many lifetimes it took to build that habit and whether you are ready to finally close out the account.